Hello, my name is Riley McHugh, and I'm here to talk about the effects of nicotine addiction on the body. So, nicotine addiction comes through the consumption of tobacco products. This means cigarettes, cigars, vaping, and nicotine pouches, which is a most recent way that people consume nicotine, or maybe a revamped way that people are consuming nicotine. It's those Zins that a lot of people would know about in this day and age. And so, on a baseline, nicotine has a lot of effects generally to the body. One being nausea, another being due to the inhalation of tobacco products. It can lead to a lot of cancers like throat cancer, mouth cancer, lung cancer, as well as the disruption of a lot of the major functioning systems within the body. So more specifically, nicotine addiction, or the consumption of tobacco products, leads to a disruption in nicotine receptors in the body. Now, there's a lot of different nicotine receptors in the body. These are neurotransmitters that are involved in bodily functioning that get disrupted due to the fact that someone is consuming tobacco. And so, for example, one of these systems that gets disrupted is there's a decrease in oxygen in the brain when people consume nicotine. That can cause a decrease in oxygen in the blood systems and disrupt heart functioning, lead to heart disease and artery shrinkage, which again can lead to a heart attack and eventually death as one of the effects of consuming nicotine. Now, it also disrupts systems like the memory and learning system located in the hippocampus. That's a different nicotine receptor and neurotransmitter that's disrupted, but it still has effects on the brain in that way, as well as it can activate the flight or fight response in the body. So when a lot of people are using cigarettes to mitigate stress in their life, it can actually cause adverse effects and cause their body to have a response system that's used to fight or flight when they maybe shouldn't be in that way physically. And so the consumption of tobacco and these receptors just can disrupt systems. Another system is the reward system within the body, which can explain why nicotine is such an addictive substance. What happens with nicotine as opposed to other substances, though, is there is an increase in these receptors in the synapse, and so it causes an overload to these reception sites where the body's functioning systems are not able to give the same amount naturally, and so it's necessary for people to continue consuming nicotine in order to attempt for these systems to have the same effect, but unfortunately prolonged and chronic use of these substances can cause deactivation of the receptor binders, and that means that those systems don't function the same, especially the longer you use cigarettes. The age you start using and how long you're using any type of nicotine consumption really does matter within these systems within the brain. And so what people can do about that is, now we know a lot more about nicotine and its effects on the body due to studies, but also just education. There did not used to be limits on who could buy tobacco products, and now there is age limits in every state for who's able to purchase these products. And so in order to treat nicotine addiction, there's behavioral elements, so that's like counseling, therapy, groups. But there's also something called nicotine replacement therapy, and so that's more of a chemical component that where your prescribers can give you replacements like gum, like patches, like slow delivery medication of that same nicotine effect, though, so that you're not fully going into withdrawals or trying to do it cold turkey. Because of its addiction component, it's really hard to quit smoking cold turkey. A lot of people are not successful when they just try to quit because it has the effects on the brain. There's also a new pharmacological treatment through bupropion, which is an antidepressant that affects neurotransmitters. And the best way for people to beat nicotine addiction is through a combo of a lot of these treatments. Now, there are more, but those are a couple of the treatments available. And I appreciate you meeting with me today to discuss nicotine addiction.